Welcome to another episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host, and on this episode, I am pumped to have Clevta on the show. He is the proprietor of cleveanalytics.com, and he is an NFL expert. TA, welcome to the show.
What's up, Ed? How you doing?
I am doing well. You know, I can't believe that we are in week 9 of the NFL season, but here we are, right? And we're getting into the good part of the season. We got so much to talk about, right?
Yeah, it is pretty. I feel like I was just on talking right before the season started about my NFL preview and some futures and things like that, and it felt like just yesterday. Now we're heading into November, and Thanksgiving's going to be here before you know it. So it's crazy. The football season's so fun, and you get so entrenched in it, or at least I do, that the weeks just go by so fast. So it's fun and it's interesting, but I want it to slow down a little bit.
For sure. The Football Analytics Show is brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you, as 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips and analytics. I bring you insights from sharp people like TA. To sign up for free, go to thepowerrank.com. That is my site for better sports betting information. Once again, that's thepowerrank.com. TA, is there an NFL bet that you would be willing to share?
You know, we were talking offline a little bit. This is the lowest volume week that I've had so far. Usually, I have 3, 4, maybe 5 wagers by Wednesday, and I like to get in early. Try to get my CLV. And this week I only have one wager, and it's a teaser. I think I think these lines are very, very efficient right now, and just so many injuries, especially the quarterback position, and not even just injuries, just uncertainty at the quarterback position. And I'm not as great with, a lot of uncertainty and lack of information. That is not necessarily my strong suit. I don't need full information, but I just need enough to use some of my data. And so when you've got things like the Anthony Richardson swap out, you've got Jameis Winston in, you've got the injury, Derek Carr may or may not play. There's a handful of other, Jordan Love's injury. It's just like so much uncertainty. And then, with some of the other positions, I don't really have any side wagers. I mean, I'll give you the teaser. It feels like a square teaser, but I really like it. And I've only done a couple of teasers all year. I've been very selective with those. And I think getting Philly down to a 1.5 on a 6-point teaser, or a point, depending where you get it. And then, pairing that up with the Chiefs at 2.5, getting that under a field goal, I think is a really good look. It's honestly, I think, as good as you'll find. Just based on those two teams, how they're playing and who they're facing. The Eagles they were my pick to win the NFC before the year, and they've turned things on here the last couple of weeks, getting back A.J. Brown. They're 4-0 straight up and 3-1 against the spread with A.J. Brown. They're just a much better team, and their defense is playing well. Their young cornerbacks, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, are playing really well at cornerback. And so I think they've got pretty strong mismatch against a Jags team that is going to be missing Christian Kirk, potentially Brian Thomas, and maybe even Gabe Davis. They just traded Cam Robinson at left tackle. It's kind of a sinking ship defensively. They can't stop anybody. They've actually allowed every opponent to generate their highest EPA in 6 games, and then I think 2 other games it was like the second or third best game. So like they let everybody cook. So I think getting Philly just to win there is good, and then Kansas City. What's more to be said about Kansas City? Like they're unimpressive, but they just keep winning. They're good enough to essentially beat anybody, but they're not blowing many teams out. And so to me, I feel more comfortable against a Bucs team that is probably not going to be able to move the ball as well as they did last week against Atlanta without their top 2 receivers on the road at night in a hostile environment. So I do like, I feel safe getting the Chiefs at under a field goal. So that's probably my top play right now, is just doing that teaser and getting it at minus 120 120 is essentially the best you'll find. So that's the look I'm looking at.
Excellent. With the Eagles game, I completely agree with all your analysis. I do believe in the Eagles team. and Jacksonville's just a mess. Is there something that doesn't make you like Eagles minus 7.5? You maybe just don't feel confident enough about it and like the teaser aspect of it better?
One thing about Philly is the last couple of years, they've been really a pass heavy team generally. Pass rate over expectation has been one of the highest in the league. And this year, at least in the last couple of weeks, especially, they've been trending much more towards a running team. They've been really leaning on Saquon Barkley, really leaning on Hurts's mobility, and just kind of selectively throwing deep balls to A.J. Brown when the defense is kind of cheating up to stop the run. And so it just lends itself to maybe a little lower scoring than you'd like, maybe less of a chance of an outsized win, if you will. So not to say I don't like it. It just gives me a little more comfort just for them to win versus, covering a large margin like that. And it's not like the Jags are a bad team. I mean, they still have plenty of offensive firepower. You have I still think a good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Back door will always be open for them if you're laying, the 7.5, in my opinion. So I just feel a little safer against an offense and a good quarterback like that to win more than just having to win by a significant margin when they're not throwing as much as you'd like.
Excellent. TA, I can't wait to ask you this next question. You are a Cleveland native, and they've had such a roller coaster season, especially at the quarterback position. There's a lot of uncertainty about whether they were ever benched Deshaun Watson, and he ended up getting hurt. Now you bring in Jameis Winston, and he actually had a pretty good performance last week. I think you did pretty well with some bets there that we'd love for you to tell us about. What do you make of this Cleveland Browns team and the quarterback change?
Yeah, so I was saying off air, the one probably my best long shot all year. I took Jameis Winston to lead the league in passing last Sunday at 20-1, and that hit by a few yards, fortunately. And so it was really just a combination of it was a great marriage. The Browns like to throw the ball on everybody, even when they had Deshaun Watson. It was just a very pass heavy offense. The Ravens are a pass funnel. They've allowed the highest rate of neutral game passes in the league. They got an elite run defense, poor pass defense. So teams have been throwing on them generally. So you had that combination, a gunslinger in Jameis Winston, who, he can throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, can also throw 4 interceptions at the same time. So he's not afraid to push it down the field. So I just thought that, and Marlon Humphrey was out for Baltimore. They don't have a great pass rush. I just thought that the Browns would really look to push the ball down the field with Jameis a lot, and that's what he did and threw over 40 times. So I thought that was a mispricing, so fortunately to hit that. But yeah, I think it's like deja vu all over again with this Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco from a year ago. Once Deshaun Watson's out, you bring in a veteran quarterback who likes to take chances and really, like I said, push the ball down the field. And, Jameis Winston did that. And that's what Joe Flacco did last year. And we saw the results. I think it's now there's 7 starts between Flacco and Winston in the last 2 years. And six times they threw for over 300 yards. And Deshaun Watson is yet to throw for over 300 yards as a Brown. So pretty incredible stuff. The change at the quarterback position can do for this offense and this Stefanski scheme. And so, it's one of those tough situations where they just tried to make it work as best as they could with Deshaun Watson. You obviously commit $250 million guaranteed. You trade all those picks. You take all the public backlash. The last thing you wanted to do was just completely, quit on him and, essentially admit failure when you still have all that money that's owed to him. And so, I'm sure the front office and the ownership, especially, and the coaching staff, they were all, they're all tied to this Watson move, and they just tried their best to make it work. And I think in the back of their minds, they knew that he just wasn't the right guy at this time to give them the best chance to win. But they knew in the long run, like, you're going to be paying this guy money, so you kind of had to make it work if you could. And so I understand from that point. I mean, I think from a fan's perspective or a media perspective, when all you see is bad quarterback play, it's like fantasy football, or it's like you're sitting, playing video games. Oh, let me just bench that quarterback to give me a better shot to win. But, in the long run, kind of needed Watson to be that guy, because now if he's not, next year you're going to have to try to find a cheap option and still be paying all that money on the books for Watson the next couple of years. So, is what it is. And we're going to see probably continued good offense from Winston with his offensive line back and Nick Chubb back in there. So I'm curious. I think they're too far out to make a real playoff run. If you would have inserted him maybe 2 or 3 weeks prior, and you could have won 1 or 2 of those games, you would have had a real shot to get a wild card. But they're just too far out. They've got one of the toughest schedules remaining in the NFL. And, we know how inconsistent Jameis can be. So he's, for every one of those games like he had yesterday or last week, he's going to have a clunker or two. So it's going to be too hard to consistently pull off enough wins to make the playoffs. But, at least it makes the football a little more exciting for fans and a little more interesting. But the real question is what they do going forward. And that's a big question mark starting next year.
What do you think happens there? I mean, do they give Deshaun another shot if he can come back from his Achilles?
My best guess is what they do is they just kind of admit defeat. It's not like, he's got a season-ending injury and then he's just going to come back at training camp in the offseason and try to get him back to speed. I mean, Achilles is essentially a full year. That's a full year injury. So even if the best case scenario he were to come back, I mean, it would be mid next season anyway. And so I think next year he's not playing. I think they just tell him like you're just not playing. I think what they do is they try to reset the roster a little bit. Depending on what happens this week against the Chargers, that's going to really tell you what they do, because at the trade deadline, because the trade deadline is the following week and the Browns have a bye. So that is the time they're going to have to make a decision. And so, if they lose this game, it's kind of a no-brainer. They're going to sell off a handful of their veterans and try to get some mid-round picks, try to recoup as many picks as they can. If they win, it's a tough spot. I can see them just kind of letting it ride, right or wrong. I can just see them try to get a little bit more public sentiment back with this fan base and just kind of let them, see how it goes the rest of the season. But, there are guys on this roster like Zadarius Smith, who's a good veteran edge rusher. He's got 5 sacks. I mean, the Lions would be a perfect fit for him.
Yes,
I've been talking about that for a few weeks on Twitter that, you could probably get him for a 4th round pick. And I'm sure, if you're a Lions fan, you would take that all day. Like, he's not an elite pass rusher, but he's perfectly solid. Like, he's going to get you your 7-8 sacks, and you know what you're getting out of him. He knows the NFC North. So that's a guy that I think would be kind of first out the door in a trade scenario. And then there's others, Greg Newsome. I don't think they're not looking to trade Myles Garrett, so I don't think that's on the table. But I think some of these veterans are owed a lot of money. If they can get some mid-round picks back and try to restock the roster for next year. And I think the best case scenario is you get a top 5 pick. And this is not the greatest quarterback class, but I'm just throwing it out there. Let's say a Cam Ward is worthy of a top 5 pick, and you're in position to take him. I mean, we know the Panthers and the Patriots, who could have high picks, are not going to take quarterbacks. Well, actually, the Panthers might.
The Panthers might
back because they've got Bryce Young, but there's a chance that like the Patriots wouldn't do that. But if there's a top 5 quarterback that they're interested in drafting, what you would do is you take that quarterback. He's on a rookie deal. And you just kind of let Watson, sit the next few years, tell him to go away. And you're paying, on your cap, it's like $75-80 million. It's some ungodly number for the next 2 years. And you just justify it by saying, if that quarterback hits in the top 5, you're essentially paying him an extension early. That's kind of how you have to look at it. You're paying him like you're going to be paying him in a couple of years with an extension anyway. So that's the best route you can go. Maybe try to find some, cheaper 1-year options at other positions, and let some of the veterans go, and you try to build that way. That's probably the best route, is just to find a young guy in the draft that can kind of fill that role and let Watson kind of go away and let his contract run out. I think there's a way that there's the fastest way to get rid of him is essentially just eat his contract for 2 years, and you take a massive cap hit in both those years, but then it's off the books. I think if you cut him post June 1 next year, in the offseason. I think that's the way they can do it. So it's going to be painful no matter what, but we've seen the Broncos do that, right, with Russell Wilson, not to that extent, but like they took a massive 1-year hit, drafted Bo Nix, and now they look like they're on their way. You've got other situations like I think Matt Ryan with Atlanta a couple of years ago. They had to take kind of a 2-year hit. That's really what you have to do, is just kind of swallow it in the short term and hope you can kind of stabilize things with a new quarterback and then move on. And I think that's what they're going to do.
I guess it all depends on what happens with the Chargers coming into town. I think this is a really interesting game because the Chargers are starting 2 rookies at cornerback. They've got some injuries there, even though the defensive numbers look good. Market's favoring the Chargers right now. What do you see happening?
Great question. So the Chargers are a really interesting team because they have not faced many difficult opponents. I think the Chiefs are really the Chiefs and the Steelers, but they only had Herbert for half that game. I mean, their schedule has been, pretty soft generally. I mean, they just faced Spencer Rattler, right? Early in the year, they faced Bryce Young, they faced Gardner Minshew, Justin Fields. Like they haven't. I mean, Bo Nix. It's been a really the opposing quarterbacks that they've had to go up against have been, one of, if not the easiest set of quarterbacks in the NFL. And look, they fared very well against them, but it's really hard to judge how good they really are. So, that's a difficult defense to really evaluate, and they haven't had all their pieces in there. I mean, against the Chiefs, I think they lost. They didn't have Derwin James and Bosa and some other guys. So it's. I think it's a solid team. It's a solid defense. Their offense is. I mean, Justin Herbert's been playing great. He has no weapons because of the injuries and because they're just lacking talent to begin with. And their offensive line on paper looks great, but they can't get their run game going. Very inefficient. So it's just a really hard team to evaluate. I think that this is going to be a tight game no matter what. I'd be stunned if it was a 7 or 8 point win, more than that on either side. I think the number is right under a field goal. Makes a lot of sense. I think Chargers by 1 or 2 is essentially what I have, kind of in that 1.5 range. But at the same time, so the Browns defense is obviously really good. It's the strength of the team. They were not going to have JOK at linebacker. He's out with a neck injury. Denzel Ward has a concussion, and that's like his 6th concussion. There's no way he's going to play. And so you're missing 2 of your best defenders. So that's a problem. And then offensively, like I said, it's the same thing as we saw last week. They're going to push the ball down the field. They've got Nick Chubb back, their offensive line. So I think it's going to be a little higher scoring than what people might think. This Chargers team, I think their totals have all been in the less than 40 during the season. If I'm getting my numbers right. So, but they haven't, like I said, we haven't faced anybody. So the Chargers have offensively, they've gone from a really run-heavy approach the first handful of games to the last 3 games. They're actually throwing it way more than expected. So they are embracing and understanding that they're going to go only as far as Justin Herbert takes them. So I think their pass numbers will continue to be elevated here. And so you might get a sneaky over game. And I know that the market already moved to the over. Some of the sharp guys I know hit that over immediately Monday morning. And so, probably the value is priced out of this thing, but I do expect it to be a tight game, and, somewhere in the, 24-23 range makes a lot of sense. So coin flippy game, nothing that I have action on right now, but I do think it'll be a really quality game and a tight one throughout.
Excellent. So Detroit is going to Green Bay. Detroit has looked really good over the past couple of weeks, and Green Bay has some issues at the quarterback position. Jordan Love strained his groin, really didn't look good last week, and may or may not play. So this looks like the biggest game of the week. How would you break it down?
Yeah, and this is why I don't have any plays on. You have so many question marks with this Packers team, and it's not even just, even if I knew Jordan Love was going to play, I have no idea how to price this because I have no idea if Malik Willis is good or not. Going into this first start earlier in this year, he was literally rated as the worst quarterback the NFL has seen in the last 5 years, just based on EPA and all those sorts of numbers. And he came in and has been awesome when he stepped on the field. Now, some of that is just, I think Matt LaFleur is a really good coach, obviously. and he put him in great positions to succeed, and relied on their run game and used his legs, and and took shots down the field when necessary. But he did a great job managing him. And then even last week he came in for Love halfway through against the Jags and led them to the win. So I don't know. Is that real? Is that really? Is he that good? Is that offense really going to be humming to the same degree, or do we use our priors with Willis and understand that when he's in a situation where maybe if they're trailing, can he bring you back with his arm? Probably not. So he's got to be in a very specific game state. So there's a lot of questions there. And I know they've also had a couple of their offensive linemen are down. I think Jair Alexander's hurt. I have no idea if they're going to play. It's still early in the week. So that's a question mark there. I mean, I do think that over a field goal is probably a tad high, even if it is Willis. So I definitely would not lay it. I mean, this Lions team, I don't know. Obviously, you're close. You follow them. Like I look at the NFL. I've been doing this a while, and it's like every time you see a team just completely exceed market expectations, you always assume it comes back to crashing back to earth. And we're just not seeing it with the Lions. I mean, this is a 3-year run against a spread that's like in the 75% range. It's just incredible under Dan Campbell, and they just continue to beat market expectations. And it's a testament to their staff and the quality of play and just kind of how they play the game and coach the game. They bring it every single week. They never take plays off or games off. And it's just a really quality team. And so I hate fading them in any scenario. I will say it is a golf game outdoors, which is always interesting. And I did check the weather. I didn't check this morning, but I know I checked yesterday, and it was looking at mid 50s and rain at Lambeau Field, which is a clear advantage for Green Bay if that's the case, because he always struggles when it's cold or slippery with the wet weather. So that is a little bit of a neutralizer. So maybe both teams rely on the run game a little bit more. So long story short, I don't have an angle here. I would have loved to see Jordan Love play. I think this would be closer to a pick 'em, if he were to play. I also don't think that 3.5 is the right number with Malik Willis. As long as nobody else is going to be missing this game on the Packers side. So, I think that 3 is probably the number that I think makes the most sense, is most fair with Malik Willis. But again, it's so hard to price this. And even if Love plays, he's going to be limited and not going to be mobile. And so, so many different factors here that I'm just probably going to be a spectator and see if someone can finally slow down this Lions team, because it's getting a little bit ridiculous.
Absolutely. I've started running QB specific numbers. At the beginning of the year, I just assumed that the drop from Jordan Love to Malik Willis was 7 points. And now I can actually put some data behind it in terms of the things that I do. It's basically based on market and then based on play-by-play data. And now the adjustment's 6 points. And I think Malik Willis, I mean, we got to remember, he was bad that first game. I don't think he threw for 100 passing yards. And then the second game, he was much better. Overall, like I don't necessarily think this guy is very good. I'm not off the prior there. But what I actually wanted to ask you about is both these defenses. My numbers have the Lions' defense really good, actually too high. They did put a lot of resources into that secondary, and I think it's a lot better just when I watch them play. And then with the Packers, their defense is kind of all over the place in the metrics that I look at. So if you could comment on both the defenses.
Yeah, Detroit is interesting because I don't think they have a ton of great talent on defense, especially without Hutchinson, right?
Right.
But they are in such a great game state all the time. Teams have to throw on them because they're trailing or they have to keep up. That when as a defense, what the offense is going to do. There's no trickery. There's not a lot of play action, right? Because they're just dropping back and throwing. It's a lot easier to play defense. They don't really have a pass rush right now. There is. Right. I couldn't even tell you who led them in pressures last week. It was a journeyman. I forgot his name, but it's no one you would even know as like a legitimate starter in the league. And so that's going to be a problem. As long as their opponent is within shouting distance and you've got a legitimate quarterback on the other side, they're a little bit of trouble. I will say Brian Branch has played like defensive player of the year type of cornerback / safety this year. He's been awesome, great playmaker. He's got a nose for the ball, so he's done a great job. Their cornerbacks are not great. They're young cornerbacks, so you can't attack them outside if you avoid Brian Branch. So this is really, they haven't had to deal too much with a great passing offense without Hutchinson yet. And I'm not sure that's going to happen here with Willis. So I consider them a above average defense for sure. More in like the, I'd call it like 14 to 15 range if I had to line them up. And then I think with Green Bay is really interesting. They have the largest gap between EPA and success rate in the entire NFL, and that's purely because of turnovers. Especially Xavier McKinney at safety has been awesome. I think he's got an interception in all but one game. And they lead the NFL in EPA generated from turnovers. And so that's always an interesting factor is that just pure luck? Is the ball bouncing, their way? Or do they have safeties who are in great position to intercept the passes? Do that, Jair Alexander baited Will Levis into a pick 6 a few weeks ago. Like, is that luck or that's skill?
I think that's Will Levis.
Yeah, that's Will Levis, but that's also, really a smart cornerback, a veteran cornerback who baited him into that throw, so that's always difficult to measure. Is it just the ball bouncing your way from a fumble, or are you actually doing something to generate that? I think it's more, it's more luck based than anything generally, but I do think they have enough skill out there to help lead that. And then, so I think this is again, I think they're on the same vein as the Lions, kind of in that 12 to 15 range. They've got good players. I know that Jeff Hatley, who came over from Boston College, is putting, according to some of the film guys, I'm not a film guy, I'm not an X's and O's guy per se, is putting together some good things defensively and putting these guys in good spots, at least a lot better than, who was it, Joe Brady last year, or not Joe Brady, Joe Barry in the past couple of years, who had no clue on defense. So got a smarter guy back there. So I think both are kind of in that, average to above average range generally. So, I don't know if Malik Willis plays, this might be an under. I hate fading Detroit and fading their totals, but, it could end up being more of a run game generally with both Willis and maybe Goff in that bad weather. If it is raining than anything. Yeah. So there could be a look there. But I do think both defenses are, they make enough plays. They're just, they're not elite, I guess. The best way to put it.
That makes a ton of sense. Clevta, thank you so much for your time. Please let everyone know where they can get all of your excellent work.
Yeah, Cleve Analytics is my site. I have a bunch of free stuff up there as well. There's a bunch of tools and things you can search for. If you're interested in subscribing for the rest of the year, running a discounted rate, and I do a write-up on every game for every week. Got some DFS analysis, some survivor analysis if you're still alive, pick 'em pool stuff. So kind of a little bit of everything for anyone. So, check it out. And I appreciate you having me on, Ed.
Absolutely. Love having you on. And honestly, I would actually really recommend people check out your preview. I know we're late into the season, but I think it's really important to kind of get some sense of team strength, how good these teams are, the expectations. So you can just definitely download that PDF straight from your site. And then, and you also post a ton of good stuff on Twitter. So maybe give your handle there. I know I follow all of it.
Yeah, you can find me at Clevta on Twitter. And I just try to post from time to time anything that I find interesting and some data that's out there that I think is interesting that people will want to check out. So you can follow me on either of those platforms. And it's kind of fun that the season is coming along, but a little sad at the same time. I'm hopefully don't see snow here soon, and then really make me depressed. But the season needs to slow down.
Well, with climate change, I think we're pushing off the snow a little bit. So, but I highly recommend that everyone follows TA on Twitter. Thanks again for your time.
All right, thanks, Ed.
You've been listening to the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host. Just a reminder, you can get my free sports betting newsletter Every Saturday, I publish 5 Nuggets Saturday, which is my curated list of tips and analytics. I bring sharp insights from people like Clevta. Sign up for free at thepowerrank.com. Once again, my name is Ed Fang, and I will talk to you again next week.